So folks, I want to make sure that we all get this right, because with any luck, all of us will become part of the opportunity or problem, depending on how you define it. And since we're all here in Massachusetts, we can take care of each other together. Look, I don't want to do death by PowerPoint. I want to show you a little bit about thinking about the new look of old age, because frankly, while we all may be aging, we're not all aging the same way that our parents did. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But also, given where my day job is, technology is certainly going to have a part of it, not just to help you live longer, but hopefully to show you some things about how technology will help us live better. So we'll go through this and we'll have a little bit of fun. Hopefully there will be a few moments for questions. But more than anything else, I really hope to provoke you to think differently. We cannot think about healthy aging as being, well, remember how our parents and our grandparents age? We need more of that because there are more older adults. No, we have a very different challenge ahead of us, which means that we have to have very different ways of approaching. And by the way, just as a very quick footnote, this is a hard act to follow. I think what Beth and the team before me presented, dead on. It's some of the best work I've seen anywhere, not just the United States, but around the world. So commending both the folks who did the work and the people who funded it. So I like to use this slide because I don't like to be the only guy in the room with the same haircut. There's a few of you that go to the same barber shop I do, so we'll skip that. It's also proof from one of my students that for $75 you can ruin a perfectly good piece of art. You know, it is required when you're talking about aging to talk about how many people there are. This is the only chart you'll remember out of my entire deck. But this is from a commercial in Japan where they are now selling more adult diapers than they are selling baby diapers. We can't chuckle too much because as the only industrialized country growing around the world, we're not too far behind. But think about this, and this is what we need to think about when we start thinking about healthy aging. You know, we're using convenient numbers that were given to us by policymakers in Germany, inherited by Americans, and basically stuck with. We're not sure where aging begins. Is it 65? Is it 70? Is it 50? In my lab, painfully for me, and when I picked the number, I was younger, so it sounded good, we used 45. And there's a variety of reasons, physiologically, caregiving, financially, why we might want to think about that. But as we think about subjective well-being and happiness, two very different things, we really need to think about how old is old. Because if the Lancet's article that you see in front of you is correct, that half of the babies in the so-called rich world may live to age 100, what does that mean? Will my wife want to hear the same jokes for another 30 years? What does aging in place mean? I mean, that really begs a question. Retiring at age 65, is it really policy savvy and subjectively something you want to be off the grid for more years of work? Less years of work than more years than the years you've been working. But I have a 21-year-old, she just turned 21. I have empirical evidence that from 0 to 20, there's no return on investment there. So from 0 to 20, you're not working, 65 to 85, and 85 plus, you're not working. We need to really rethink not just what old age is, but what we will do with the time that's been granted. I don't know if you saw this in May from last year. The new literature out there for many of us, now they're pointing to 120. Look, I don't know if it's 100, 120, 95, or 135. The lab, we're looking at quality of life to age 100. If we get more than that, we'll renegotiate what we do. But the bottom line is, these are the people your parents warned you about, as the great philosopher Jimmy Buffett once said. And the bottom line is that we got one of these characters in the United States turning every 7 to 8 seconds, roughly 68 years old. Now, how many of you were born between 46 and 64? Raise your hands. Keep them up. Now, to see the people that are older than you, they wish you'd just shut up, and the younger people would wish you just go away. The fact is what I want to show this picture. This is the older boomers. I'm at the part that went over the fence last for the generation. But the reason why I want to show this is not just for the ha-ha of the outfits. Will these people age as politely as your parents did? Do they have, shall we say, different expectations? Will they calmly sit on the chair waiting for the children to visit them? Will they expect policy to evolve to meet their needs? No, this is the loudest, the whiniest, and indeed the largest generation of older folks. So yes, they do think they're the first to get old. And I really think that the fact of the matter is what we need to think about is that policy, business innovation, and how we plan for our own retirement is going to be driven not by the technologies, not by policy, but by expectation that will drive politics, will drive innovation, and what people expect. So, I know well-being requires a number of behaviors, but one of the things that we're really looking for is to live longer and to live better. So, after you get to a certain age, I think that we can tell all our health friends to, step down a little while. I'll have my chocolate and whatever else I want. Look, the reason why I started the lab, and I think it really frames what we're talking about here today, was inspired by reading an article about Sarah Noss. And Sarah Noss at the time turned 119 years old in 1999. And some journalist had the only way to put it, the chutzpah, to ask her, why do you enjoy living so long? First off, you don't ask a woman about her age even at her birthday. Secondly, at her 119th birthday, you don't ask her why she enjoys living this long. But she came back with something I think that is far better than any policymaker, any egghead in Cambridge or elsewhere could have come up with. And that is, I enjoy my life because I have my health and I can do things. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the challenge of healthy aging. It is not a stochastic model that we need to crunch. It's not a computer program one of my students needs to write. It is how to understand what is healthy aging. You will have disease. The question is how well will you manage it? But how well will we be able to do things? So whether it's to work, whether it's to date, whether it is to contribute, whatever it might be, that's what we need to invent. Because now that we're living so much longer than we did 100 years ago, we now need to add to the field, what is it you're going to do and where are you going to do it? It is not just about supporting aging, it is about inventing aging. And that's where I come to the idea that the real disruptive demographic is not about how many old people there are, but it's the gap between our parents who coped and calmly went into old age. That lower slope line in black is basically the belief that, frankly, as I age, there'll be less flexibility, less strength, maybe less memory, sometimes by design, sometimes by disease. But the next generation, the boomers and the kids after them, the Gen X, which is, we'll get to them in a minute, is the most like, they're all crazy, I need to be in control generation. And Gen Y, which is aging, what aging? They all believe that they don't believe they're going to get out alive, but they do believe they're going to get out better. And that gap between what always was and what people want is the new expectations gap. And just very quickly on a health note, the way to define it, I would suggest is the story I'd like to say about my dad. If he went to the doctor with his bad knee in his 60s, basically even in his 60s, they would say, gee, Frank, you've got a bad knee. After all, you're in your late 60s. Here's the new and improved medication. Good luck with that. I would suggest to you that based upon the research, based upon the education in med schools today and the lack of time to give any different education within 4 years, that I will show up to the doctor and they'll say, gee, Joe, you are 60, 70, 80, 90 years old. Your knee hurts. Here's a new gee whiz pain medication. Good luck with that. The big difference will be, and I'm looking at the many women in the room, is that my wife will push me out of the way because she's tired of me whining about my knee, and she will say the following, gee, Doc, that's an interesting point. His knee does hurt, and it is 70 or 80, 90 years old. But guess what? The other knee is the same age and it doesn't hurt. Fix the knee. That is the new opportunity as well as the new challenge we have in front of us for social services, for health services, for housing, and indeed transportation. This is not the same generation, just more of it. So let me introduce you to her. All the men in the room, please raise your hand. This is going to get really ugly for you. If you want to leave and have another Danish, I would do that. She, and it is largely a female discussion, is generally healthier, and I will caveat that, so don't get all excited. Secondly, informed. I didn't say correct, but she believes that she's informed. Smarter, more education, and we'll talk about what education gives you, and it's not necessarily intelligence. Caregiving, we're out there providing care, indeed female, and by the way, aging is really complex. This nonsense that we retire as we get older, no, aging is a lot of work for families and the individual. So let's talk about ill but not sick. 110 million Americans have one chronic condition, 60 million have two, and 20 million win the lottery of having 5 chronic conditions. Asthma, hypertension, diabetes, the disease of choice for boomers, and the like. The fact of the matter is that we will be ill. The question is, how well will we be able to manage that illness so that we're not so sick that we can't work, volunteer, walk the dog, whatever it might be. The challenge we may want to also think about as we support the future of healthy aging is a new dichotomy that is emerging out there both in the policy world, business world, and in our own family lives. The difference between affording health care and affording quality of life. That's the new dimension that is going to emerge. Now, put it in a very succinct way. You will get a wheelchair if you need a wheelchair. It will be covered by public or private pay, whatever it might be. Oh, I'm sorry, did you want the wheelchair that's light enough that your wife can actually fold it and fit it into the back of the car? Sorry, that one's a little too expensive. The challenge we're going to be coming up against now is that this generation knows the difference between simply the wheelchair that works and the wheelchair that actually works well, that provides quality of life for myself and my caregiver. This is about well-being. The data that Beth and her team are collecting on the state is absolutely dead-on brilliant. The science of well-being, and it has emerged into a science for the last 10 or 20 years, looks a little bit like this. These are the curved lines of how well we age across the lifespan. And there's some gender differences there, but they're somewhat notional. And you can see that generally from 18 to 21 on a scale of from essentially 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 not being so good, that 18 to 21 is pretty good. You've got your parents' credit card, you're in school, you're not doing too badly, and then you have to get your first job. Life just goes way down. You've got to get up in the morning. Life's pretty good. I don't know what's happening at 34, 37. That could be the first child. All of a sudden it goes down a little bit, but notice this. The population that you need to engage to think about their future, whether it's around retirement planning, transportation planning, caregiving, how they're behaving and being healthy as they get older, between 37 to 57 years old is the lowest state of well-being. Now, something weird happens. After about age 60, life starts getting better. You're taking more meds, you've got more diseases, your income's gone down, your wife, and guys, you'll see this in a moment, is bored with you because she's initiated, you ready for this? 90% of the divorces are initiated by women for the generation over age 50, which has the #1 divorce rate. Does anyone want to know why she initiates that, by the way? #1 reason? Yeah, I was hoping it'd be money. I would hope it would be like, sexual something. It'd be a great slide. No, he bores me. It's really terrible. But after age 60, things start getting better. So one of the things we may want to think about as we measure well-being and subjective well-being, I don't know if you want to admit this in front of a group of people who are doing aging. Old people lie. And that is that they tend to cope. They tend to say, well, it's supposed to hurt a little, so I'm not going to argue too much. Now, maybe the next generation won't do that, but the fact of the matter is that as we age, physically, emotionally, we start to filter out negative information and only filter in positive information. Whoop. Next generation is far more educated. We have more education than any generation in history that's coming online. By the way, education, and all of us here in Massachusetts are blessed by the number of schools we have. We know that education does not necessarily make us smart, but let me tell you, it does make you have an attitude. Look at this. 64% of the 45 plus believe they have an above average IQ. Really? Do we want to do a field experiment later on and see if that actually is true out there? 74% of them have a great deal of confidence in themselves. This is a very different generation that's going to be looking for more than just support. And what I mean by that is, we don't learn how to age necessarily or what is a good thing to buy or what is a service by benchmarking whether this social service is better than the next or this company is treating me better than another one. We learn values every day when we go into the marketplace. And one of those values I think it's really strong about the next generation and the current generation of caregivers is make me smart. I want to make the right choice. All that education has made us a generation of researchers. So think about Whole Foods, AKA Whole Paycheck. You can walk into Whole Foods and learn more about an apple than you know your own spouse. Where it was picked, fair trade, what is it sprayed with, how many other apples were near it. Walmart, think about this. The name of the TV network within Walmart at the other end of the socioeconomic spectrum is the Smart Shopper Network. And yes, Apple, we have to get them up there as the example of the day. But the fact of the matter is, you don't ever feel stupid because actually you're going into a fun environment to the Genius Bar. So as we deliver services, as we think about the future of old age, it's also about empowering. It's not always about providing. And part of that empowering is making sure that we have the tools, like the index that Beth and her team are putting together, but also the tools to be able to make sense out of the data that are out there. And that's part of the problem. We've got too much data out there if we're not careful. Across the generations, whether it's the boomers, the folks born before them, or after rather, Gen X, Gen Y, there is so much out there, particularly about health, is who is going to help us cut through that clutter? And this has resulted in something that we're not used to dealing with, although the boomers are the first to begin. The next generation of older adults not only have a higher set of expectations, we don't trust anyone. We don't trust institutions. And by the way, expertise is really taking a hit. Think about it. With so many of us with college degrees or some college degree, the idea of expertise is, you know, I could have been a brain surgeon. I just didn't have the time. I wanted to do something else. So what we're finding, this is from the General Social Survey, a very nice data set across the country, is that not only do the baby boomers have far less trust, as in, generally speaking, most people can be trusted, do you know that every generation subsequently are starting off at lower levels of trust? So whether it's trust in Congress, trust in insurance companies, trust in banks, but also trust in other people. It's going to be painfully hard to have social engagement and engaging people at the community level if we have now become socialized to not have the trust to engage at a younger age. You don't wake up one day at 75 and say, gee, you know, life is great. I'm going to do everything I did not do the first 75 years. And why is that trust eroding? I want you to think in terms of healthy aging. Look at what we've been watching on TV, having reinforced, both fictional and factual. The healthcare system is a so-called mess. There's a meningitis outbreak that's not being controlled. The medications may be tainted. What I'm trying to set up for you is the context of healthy aging as to we may be able to provide service, but through what channel? How will people actually trust the person knocking at their door, on the website, or whatever it might be? And this is a very big difference in the future of an older population. Complexity management. How do we actually manage what's out there? How many of you actually remember the food pyramid? Then we changed it to be the food. Remember we had the pyramid that was going this way with vertical lines. Now we have the food plate. By the way, your blood pressure numbers, we changed those twice since 1970. You could be feeling better and getting worse and not even knowing it. Diabetes, the same thing. We've changed the glucose levels. And in fact, as of last week, coffee is now really good for you. So it doesn't dehydrate, it doesn't stimulate any more than anything else, so let's celebrate on that. So basically, consumers who are researchers are getting all kinds of information with no basic way to filter out what that means. So healthy aging, how do I begin? How do I start? Who do I trust to give me that information? And where do I go for information? The most trusted source in America? What does that face? Other people like me. No, not bald-headed geeks from Cambridge. No, other people like yourself online. Because where are we going for trusted information? It's not just online, but you know, we're going in social media and talking about other folks, and this is no longer an age issue. That digital divide now is about socioeconomic status. It is not about age. Even 1/3 of the folks over 65 are online, not sharing pictures of their grandchildren. They're out there vetting their doctors, their realtors, their financial advisors, whatever it is that they want to do. And by the way, Angie's List. How many of you use Angie's List? You know, plumbers, painters, financial advisors, neurologists. Look at this. Health now, no matter how many school years you may have gone to school or years you've practiced, you're right there on the data set as being evaluated. This is the new way healthy aging is going to happen. It's very consumer focused. And she, because she's doing most of the decision making around this, 90 cents on the dollar of every healthcare decision for a caregiver or a family is made by a 47 to 57-year-old female, typically the oldest daughter. And when we talk about healthy aging, we want to trust the doctor, and we do trust the doctor, but you know, on average, the average person has 3 doctor visits a year, but we spend 52 hours a year online. So go figure where the actual information may be coming from. So lastly, before I get into the fun science fiction and science fact stuff of technology, I want you to think about healthy aging as about the changing nature of advice given the changing nature of this older adult and the people who love and care for them. There's the do-it-yourselfer. This is largely the Gen X folks. This is the woman who stays up at 2 o'clock in the morning or is in her cubicle at the office doing research on health and wealth choices for her family and for her extended family, vetting what they find with friends and family, and then going to the advisor, which could be a pharmacist, doctor. But guess what? They don't pull the trigger and make a decision there. If it's not exactly an emergency or urgent care related issue, they take that information and then go back online. In fact, as many of us already know, and many of us may have already done it, we print out articles from Dr. Google, go to the doctor and say, gee, doc, I read these, what do you think? Do you want to know what the new evolution is we found in focus groups throughout the country just recently? Print out the articles. Gee, doc, I read these articles, and guess what? Your name's not on any of them. Could you refer me to a real expert? So lastly, women as gatekeepers. I was teasing a little bit, but the fact of the matter is that women, the next generation of older adults, are going to be far more, not just about the number of older people aging that are women, but a far more different type of woman. Since 1978, women have got more bachelor's degrees in all fields but engineering, and she's about to eclipse that in 5 years. 1988, she has more graduate degrees than men in all fields but engineering, and that's eclipsing. She's more likely to do the research in all fields. She's responsible for not just, think about this, you're more likely to have more parents to care for than you ever had kids. The average baby boomer mom had roughly 1.8 to 1.9 children. The mothers of the baby boomers had roughly 3.8 to nearly 4 kids per mom. So that means if you've got a partner who does not have an older adult sister, you're going to be stuck with 4 older kids to take care of on your own, if you will. So that means that she's managing the daily activities of the house, because as my wife likes to reassure me, she hasn't given up the other job in addition to her day job because she's got a husband who can't make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So she's doing that. Primary CEO, healthcare delivery issue. This is all aging is not just an aging policy issue. This is evolving into fundamentally a women's political issue that will get more momentum over time. And it should. And by the way, I built in caregiving. I have 2 daughters just to build redundancy in the system. And guys, the reason why the cartoon's up there is not to take up filler space on a slide. We know by watching, but we also know by science, that for whatever reason, men have been socialized or programmed, whatever it is, that as they get older, they do retire. They pull back. You know, the old story is, retirement, where's dad? Maybe dad's, maybe if he's a golfer, fine. He's out golfing. Where's dad? Dad's in the garage. Where's dad? My family's originally from upstate New York. He's puttering in the basement. No one knows what that means, but he's out there puttering in the basement. Where's dad? Dad's on the couch. Where's dad? Dad's gone. Mom, think about this. The Kaufman Foundation shows that 50% of the new business starts out there are by women over age 50. Where's mom? Mom may have joined a book club, but maybe not even a book club. Maybe, I don't know, grandchildren, maybe going to a faith-based, church organization. She's out there doing something. Guys, we need to step up our game. And by the way, they're already seeing that in terms of women are clapping. This is a hard audience. And by the way, we're already seeing that the next generation are old. They're not what you think they are. Not only do women control 2/3 of the wealth in the country, but look what they're buying. The average consumer walking into a Brookstone store, according to the research we've done in the lab, you know what her age is? 50-year-old female. To me, that's the gadget shop. You think all the boys would be in there? No, she may be buying it for the boys in her life, but she's out there the one buying it. Home Depot and Lowe's, they don't really care about the contractors anymore. It's all about the women. Why do you think they moved the forklifts out of the store? The women didn't like it, particularly women over age 50. And, as I said, she's making the healthcare decisions, and given that Super Bowl is coming up, you should also know she's responsible for 80% of NFL product purchases. That's a lot of sweatshirts. So caregiving, 1 in 4 families in the United States, and especially in Massachusetts, providing upwards of 21 hours per week of elder care. It's a 47 to 57-year-old daughter. And by the way, this is the big thing. We can quantify this. Merrill Lynch data. Regardless of income, you're probably spending about $200 a month for groceries, transportation, or like. This is a fundamental issue, not just about support in time and stress, but it's financial as well. And then the last thing that we should pay attention to in Massachusetts, but around the nation, and frankly even in other parts of the world, aging, unfortunately, and maybe it's by choice for some, is a home alone experience. These shopping carts here aren't there for fun. The fastest selling shopping cart for retailers now are those smaller shopping carts. We had fewer kids. The kids we do have, we kicked out to go elsewhere to get a job or whatever it might be. So 30% roughly of the couples over 60 live by themselves. But look at this. Women over 65, 40% of them live by themselves. Now, this isn't just a commentary about American men. Apparently, if you're in Scandinavia, 53% of Scandinavian women live by themselves as well. That could be by choice or by default. But the fact of the matter is that the future is looking gray, female, and small. So with that note, I want to show you what the technologies are to help you live happier, better, and maybe have a little bit of fun, and you're also going to need Geek Squad in your hip pocket. Google, the CEO of Google announced a couple months back that he saw the entire world to be online by 2020. In the same interview, which did not make the news headline, I was surprised. He, as well as the head of Cisco, said the following, that all of us within 5 years will have upwards of 5 IP Internet Protocol addresses on or in our body. So if you've got a cell phone, you've already got one. If you're holding a tablet, you've got 2. If you start looking at buying a pacemaker, needing a pacemaker or something else, pretty soon you will be the computer interface, not the thing that you're necessarily holding. So with that in mind, I want you to start thinking about how the future of old age is really going to make older adults a lifestyle leader that we never thought about. These are the folks that are going to be leading a life that most younger people would not want to do, will not have the money to do, or would have never considered. So think about the fact that personalized medicine is set to change the future of pharmacy. It's no longer about, here's a painkiller for everyone. No, Joe, you chose your parents badly. Here's a painkiller for your genetic backup. Pervasive health, or the idea of your cell phone now is going to be picking up from that little sensor you see in the lower left. It's a blood pressure sensor. It's going to go underneath your neck. It'll tell the phone by Bluetooth 24/7 how your blood pressure has been going. And we're going to have one that's going to be doing glucose levels as well for diabetics. So it's no longer going to be about how many times you prick your finger. It'll be about who your sensor is talking to and sharing it with. And by the way, that little spoon there, it's the bane of my existence, was developed on campus as well. It can actually measure the fat and the viscosity and the calorie count of, I don't know, Ghirardelli brownies or whatever it is you may want to make, and then upload that information to, I don't know, your health insurer, to a nutrition center, or in my case, to my wife saying he's eating that stuff again. And by the way, this is so-called wearable computing. This is no longer the stuff that is made for geeks. It is now mainstream. It is in the mall. It's already out there. And, you know, the future is here. It's just not widely distributed or talked about. Pay attention to the retail stores that are providing the services that we once thought was, flu shot, strep check. Can't get to the doctor on a Saturday, I'll take my kid on Sunday. No, what's happening is the retailers now are becoming either a partner or a serious player that we have to think about in what healthy aging is. Walgreens, a couple years ago, bought 3 nursing companies to be out there to provide home services, not just to deliver hardware to the house, say for COPD or diabetes, but to provide a Walgreens branded nurse to provide a checkup and to go through to make sure the hardware is working. Both Walgreens and CVS 2 months ago said, we no longer want to be just about urgent care, we want to manage your chronic condition. So the future of healthy aging is looking an awful lot like retail, more than we can ever imagine. A study was done about a number of years ago by Mass General. In many cases, it's cheaper. 2, you don't have to wait as long. And 3, the People magazine is up to date. So this is our personal advisor. We developed this with Procter & Gamble some time ago. It takes your personalized diet, allows you to go through the store aisle using barcode this generation, the next generation, which we're deploying in Germany, allows you to use RFID, that's computer tags on the product, and swipe it underneath the product, and it takes your personalized diet and reconciles it with the product. In my case, it'll say, because of your parents, Joe, step away from the high carb and move over to something else and try something else to eat. The idea is that we're going to be getting much more information that's personalized to make the right information at the right choice at the right time, and for everything we do from medication to food. How do we motivate people? Does anyone want to take a guess? How do you get people to do what you want them to do? Fancy phrase, medication compliance. Make it fun. Well, one of our students thought fun was part of it, but she also had a dark side. And I was raised Catholic, so I could appreciate this. She believed it was guilt was the greater motivator. And this is our pill pet, our farm animals, PHARM animal. It has a picture of your grandchild on it. And if you don't take your meds, the pet, like remember the Tamagotchi pets, if you play with them, they made all kinds of noise if you didn't play with them. In this case, if you don't take your meds, it gets sicker, child's face gets sadder, fades, dies. The next generation are two bunnies that are connected by pager technology. So you could be in California, the kid can be in Massachusetts. What is more compelling? The call center from your health provider, Joe, did you fill your asthma medication? Okay, thank you, bye. The oldest adult daughter who loves you dearly but has got a job, kids, a husband, and everything else, say, hey, Dad, you take your beta block? No, okay, hangs up, bye. Or a 9-year-old granddaughter, perhaps, that calls and goes, Grandpa, my bunny is sick. What are you doing? By the way, you can go the other way, too, is if she's not doing her homework and going to soccer practice, her bunny, your bunny lets you know that she's not playing fair either. Already on the market today are intelligent appliances. Here are 3 of them. LG, the Koreans, the Israelis, and the like have got technologies already out there. The fork is monitoring how fast and what you're eating. LG and Samsung have got refrigerators and stoves not only to tell you what's in the fridge, how long it's been there, and whether you've been eating, but also monitoring to let you know that mom left the stove on or left the oven on if we're managing early stage Alzheimer's or the like. The mirror was developed by a colleague on campus that actually is using the imagery every day when you go to the mirror, which in my case doesn't get any better, but they're going to be able to look at and see the capillary changes to be able to predict changes in your health. Your body temperature, your pulse rate. The idea is almost getting a checkup a day every time you shave, do makeup, whatever it might be. The future of home services, this little guy, this little tiger or teddy bear, monitors movement in the house. You can upload your glucose levels to it. You plug it into the wall so you don't have to use the internet cable. You just use the power cable. How much does it cost? It sends a signal to Tokyo University Hospital to make sure that you're doing okay. It's made by Panasonic. It's closer to $29.99. It's also closer to free. It's almost like your cell phone. It's virtually free because with Tokyo Electric Power, what they're doing is they're giving away the device. The technology becomes free. All of a sudden now you're going to be in the world of services where you actually own none of this. It's going to be like your Comcast set-top box where you pay the service for the device, and when the device gets old or needs to be fixed, you just heave it out and they put a new one in. How many of you are familiar with smart toilets? Now, I know we're getting close to lunch, so I'm going to keep it clean. I'm talking about the toilets that, not the warm and squishy stuff, but the kind that, shall we say, keep this clean, download from the user, body temperature, weight, did you take your meds, are you eating the fibers that you need, so to speak? Well, these are made by Panasonic and Toto. They're on the market today. 5 years ago, hold on to your seats, they were $6,000. Today, they're under $2,000. They're heading south in price. These toilets not only weigh you, take your blood pressure, but they upload the information to call centers. They're on the market in Israel. There's some here in the United States. They're in Japan in a large way, and certainly in Korea. But they are by 2 very well-known makers, and they're headed to your house. So think about this. Your toilet will be talking to your toaster and your refrigerator, and who knows who they will be talking. You think privacy at the local retailer is a problem. And by the way, your diapers are talking about you as well. In fact, Huggies was playing around with the idea of making a Twitter diaper so that your kid could tweet you when it needs a change. In Brazil, they're talking about maybe making this for older adults so that when dad needs a change, you simply get a Twitter message. The picture you see up in the upper left is Dava Newman. She's one of my colleagues in the department. She's developing the spacesuit for the trip to Mars. The trip is roughly 18 months. You lose 1 to 2% bone density per month, so you could leave at age 30 and come back an 80-year-old osteoporotic. The idea is, can you create a wearable or a digital dance skin that goes underneath your civilian clothes, shall we say, that can monitor your well-being, reduce the chance of injury from fall, whatever it might be. Your clothing is now going to be an integral part of keeping you connected, healthy, and safe. And we also think that all these things that are talking are going to be creating not the house of the future where you have to move, because we know from the data that even when we were doing great things economically, less than 9% of the population ever moved to a golf course, a beach, or whatever it is. By the time they were 50, their marriage or mortgage and memories were in one place, they stayed. We see the house of the future as being wiring together a variety of service providers into the home talking to these smart devices. Robots are among us and already out there with the Boston Home and Marvis Rockin's help down there. We've been working with the Computer Science Artificial Intelligence Lab to have a wheelchair that will actually direct, it will go where you tell it to go, or it'll find a person wherever they are in the facility. The person that looks like she's half asleep is not a person at all. She's a receptionist in Japan. That's a robotic receptionist. When you have a country that's shrinking in population dramatically, you need replacements. And Paro, many of you may have already seen, is a robot that recognizes your voice, your face over time, and is being used in Italy, Denmark, Japan, now in the United States. We're doing some trials on relieving Alzheimer's and dementia-related irritability late in the day as a robot to speak with, talk to, and pet. And driving, my first love, and the reason why we started the lab in the first place. By the way, since we're in Massachusetts, if you see these vehicles, please go to the second floor at any time you see them. We're envisioning, it's not about how old you are, because birthdays do not kill, health conditions do. And so one of the issues that we've been looking at is how can we envision a car that can detect changes in your behavior, changes in your health, changes in your alertness. So hence this is the what's known as the driver-aware car. So we're going to be able to detect if you're stressed, fatigued, distracted, whatever it is. And if you're stressed, we're going to be able to bring you down. If you're fatigued and not paying attention, we can bring you up. Light, smell, vibration, a variety of things. Parts of these technologies are already out there in Volvo, BMW, and will be coming out in Ford soon. Then lastly, how do we motivate healthy behaviors? Fun, friends, fashion, and health. Look, folks, we've tried the facts and fear thing for decades. You better eat right, you're going to get sick. How's that working out? Better do this, you're going to die. Yeah, I'll worry about it when I get there. No, we know that we're all just basically older, balder teenagers. We do things because of peer pressure. And so if you look over here at the far left, that's a photograph we took outside of London where they're actually the Wii leagues and game leagues that are forming at senior centers there are getting so aggressive that there is a whole new medical condition known as Wii wrist and Wii elbow from using the controller too aggressively in front of the screen. Going online to have little prompts to get people to do what they should, from medication to eating to simply walking. The piece up there from the Nightly News is a gentleman here in the state that was working with us at the lab. We developed a tele-exercise program to improve strength and flexibility for older drivers so that they can actually see when they're backing up, feel better and easier getting in and out of the car. And by the way, how many of you are familiar with Bang & Olufsen? They're the company that you have to take out a home equity loan to buy a speaker. Yeah, well, they now have seen, think about this, chronic disease is now so pervasive, it's a style statement. So what they're doing now is they're coming out with personalized high-end glucose delivery systems and needles so that you can have it modified. So it says, Joe Coughlin, pick the color, pick the metallic, and you take it out. It's no longer you want to go quietly and check your blood glucose. Now it's a matter of style, and this is already on the market in Europe. So let me end on the following. I think we've got some evolving values and evolving technologies to think about the future of how we're going to be meeting the new needs of this very different older population. We're still focused on patients, which is not incorrect, but it is incomplete. We really want to think about not just care, but care and education together. We still focus on healthy aging being about maybe the relationship with the doctor or a few clinicians. Again, not incorrect, but very incomplete. We know that the family is integral and the community is integral, not just to healthy behaviors, but reinforcing the things that we already know we should be doing. Look, all of us get articles published because we do population-based studies. That's good statistical stuff. As individuals, we don't care about populations. I don't care how well the state is doing on its own. I want to know about my community, my house, and frankly, I want to know about me. Around the world, in the world of retail, the number one thing that gets you excited is when it's personalized to what you want. Healthy aging now needs to be personalized. And that's why I was so bloody excited about the data you presented this morning, because it's bringing it right down to my community and eventually down to my house. Define touch points to get me to do what I should do. It's also about ubiquitous touch. My health is in the car, it's in the workplace, it's in the house, it's in the hospital, it's everywhere. Facts and fear, that hasn't worked for decades, yet we keep trying. It's really about how do we make it fun, how do we make it social and fashionable. And then lastly, healthy aging is not about the absence of disease. I wish it were. I'm throwing the towel in on that. I'm saying it's about how well do we manage those illnesses so that we are vital. And remember what Sarah Noss said, so that I have my health, so I can do things. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having me.